Hi everyone, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I'm excited to combine some goodies from my crafty stash for today's card. I have this gorgeous background stamp from Hero Arts that I haven't used yet. I have this beautiful Geo Triangles 3D embossing folder. I have some of these yummy neutral ink pads from Catherine Pooler and a card panel here. Now here are a couple photos of the finished card to show you the direction that we're headed, but y'all know I love my embossing folders and I love finding all different ways to use them and combine them with different items from my crafty stash. So here I'm going to take out the foam base. Out of my original size Misty, I have a sticky mat here from scrapbook.com. And the reason I'm using it here is because I want to hold my card panel off of the edge because I'm using a background stamp and I want to make sure the background stamp covers the entire panel. So that's where I find a sticky mat to be really helpful in holding that panel in place while I do my stamping, because I'm going to want to stamp it more than once. So I have a couple of these yummy new mini ink pads from Catherine Pooler, and I'm going to kind of start in the center strip, and I'm softening the edge with my blending brush because I am going to come in with a darker color, a darker brown on the top and the bottom. And here's the benefit of the Misty, of course, is I'm not entirely sure if I'm covering the entire card front, so I can stamp it as many times as I need to through this process and everything will line back up perfectly, and that awesome sticky mat is just holding my panel right in place while I work. And I'm pressing the whole rubber stamp down in my Misty with my press tool from Tailored Expressions. And here I'm just going to give this a little wipe with my stamp chamois to get that excess ink off. I'm going to put the little sticky sheet back down on top of it and put that away. Now, I have this stamped panel ready to go, and I want to run it through off screen through my die cutting machine, but this is a 120-pound accent opaque, and I really want to make sure the paper fibers take to this embossing folder. So I'm going to spritz the back, careful not to get any water on the front because I am working with water reactive inks. So I'm just going to wipe off my surface here and then load this up in the embossing folder and run it through off screen. And again, I use a Spellbinders Platinum 6. Use whatever sandwich works best for you, but I have it pretty down pack what sandwich I need for my 3D embossing folders from Altenew. But look at that awesome texture. Now I do want to go a step further and kind of create a little bit more visual interest, so I'm going to do some blending with some residual ink on my brown blending brush just to kind of give this whole design a bit of a vignette and give it some interest. This is an optional step if you want to kind of tone down the white and just give it a little bit more color into your design. So obviously I'm using all neutrals here, I'm using browns, but I feel like, you know, coloring up the edges and then letting it go white towards the center kind of draws in the eye to the center of the design where I'm going to put my sentiment. So I'm just kind of going heavier handed on the corners and lighter handed as I move towards the center. And now I'm going to look in my sentiment binder. Now this is my storage solution for sentiments. Sometimes if I'm having an off day, or usually when I get new dies, I tend to try and put a few of them at least into this notebook. And these are baseball card pockets. I have this gorgeous Celebrate You. This is a die from Concord 9th, and I have two of them in white, and I'll show you why I do them in white because I can customize them later. Now this awesome custom pokey tool my friend Judy sent me. Thank you so much, Judy. I love this thing. She's in Arizona and she put a cute little cactus on it to remind me of her. So I'm using this to poke out all the little bits from my die cut here. This one's a little bit fiddly, but it worked like a gem and it's so pretty. So I'm happy to have this on my craft desk. But I'm just going to poke this out, and I'm actually going to leave the letters white, and then I'm going to custom color the background shadow layer. So you could absolutely color the letters as well, but I find just because I can be a little rough with my ink blending that a lot of times I like to leave the sentiment white and then color up the shadow layer instead, just because it tends to be a little bit more sturdy. Now I didn't want it moving around on me, so I kind of used a piece of 2-inch post-it tape to hold the shadow layer down, and then magnets on my craft desk just so I can kind of ink blend right over this shadow layer without trying to hold it down or getting ink all over my fingers. So this is just a little tip if you have this lying around, or any sort of like mint tape, it might do the same thing just to kind of hold it in place for you while you work if you're trying to ink blend something that's already die cut out. So again, I'm going heavier handed in spots and lighter handed in others on purpose, just because I want it to give a little bit of a variation in the hue. And then I will attach the Celebrate You layer right onto the shadow layer with my micro dots, and I get these from Amazon. So I will link all the available products in the video description box below. If you expand and scroll down, you could absolutely do multiple layers of this to give it additional dimension. You could use liquid glue to attach it, whatever you want to do. But in this case, I just wanted to use some micro dots just to make it easy and set this down right onto the shadow layer. And then I'm going to pull this carefully from my temporary post-it tape here, and I'm going to pop it up on the front of the card with some thin foam strips. But first, I'm going to use my tape runner and attach this card panel directly to the card base. This is again 120-pound accent opaque. This is 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2, so US A2 size, and it does cover the entire card front. So if you did want to cut it down a little bit for a border, you absolutely could. This, I realized it was kind of upside down. More of the flowers were upside down than weren't, so I wanted to switch it around and make sure I had it kind of oriented the correct way. Now these thin foam strips I also get from Amazon. I go through a ton of them and I've still never even gotten through a package, so it's a really good price point. Be sure to check those out if you're interested in some affordable thin foam strips. So I'm just going to put this down, just trying to kind of make it even dimension behind it. Again, another option would be you could cut out multiple of the shadow layers and stack them up with other, white cardstock or things like that, and you could create dimension that way. Or you could cut a piece of sticky foam or just regular foam and make it sticky. So lots of options to give it dimension if you want to pop it up off the card. Again, I'm using my fabulous new pokey tool to get these little backers off. It was exceptionally sticky, but I put that down kind of top center towards on the composition of the card, and I'm using some liquid glue and these little resin droplets all over the front of the card in odd numbers, so 3 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and that's basically going to finish the design. So think about what things you have in your crafty stash. You guys see me all the time combining my stencils with these embossing folders, but maybe you have background stamps in your stash that need some love. So bust those out and take a look of what you can mix and match with your embossing folders to create even new designs. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. I appreciate you watching. Wow, I have a frog in my throat. And I'll catch you next time. Thank you. Bye.